What up? It's your boy Wall Street, and I'm back ready for another season review. Today, talking about the Golden State Warriors, who were eliminated in 5 games by the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Semis. And there's a lot to say about the Warriors, right? Because the team that started the season was a lot different than the team that ended the season, solely because of Jimmy Butler. But I do think, it would have been nice to see Steph play through the entire second round series against the Wolves. He went down in game 1 with a hamstring injury and was supposed to come back in game 6. Obviously, they closed it out before it could even get to game 6, with the Warriors losing in the series 4-1 to the Wolves. So the Wolves move on. They'll play the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC defeated Denver today at home very substantially by like 30 points or something like that. But let's talk about the Warriors, right? So obviously the biggest thing is that Jimmy Butler got brought in midseason. He was obviously probably going to get traded from Miami. We just didn't know where. And winds up in Golden State, signs an extension as well. So now he's under contract until the summer of 2027. So this changes a lot of things for this team, right? But in the regular season, before they traded for Jimmy, they were basically a 500 team, either slightly above or slightly below. And then after the trade deadline on, I believe, February 6th, right? On February 6th, they were 25-26, and they actually lost to the Lakers on that day. On March 6th, they were 35-28. So they had a span there where they went 9-2 after getting Jimmy Butler, right? And they started to really just churn, through things and make sure that they were doing the right things, making the right play every single time down the court. So they also had a span February 13th to March 15th where they only lost 1 game, right? So they went an entire month only taking 1 loss, and that was in Philadelphia, which obviously they probably should not have lost that game. But, things happen. So the team was obviously very different once they got Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler meshes very well with Draymond Green. They have a similar personality type on the court. They don't take any BS. They're going to be the enforcers. They're going to talk a lot of noise, all that. But I do think the main problem that I see with this team is age and the reliance on Steph Curry. Because if Steph Curry is not healthy, if Steph Curry is not bailing them out, it becomes much less likely that they're going to be able to win games on a consistent basis. And we saw that in the playoffs, right? The fact that they lost 4-1 to the Timberwolves, I think, was pretty shocking. I think going into that series, I figured, obviously with everyone being healthy, that series is going 6 or 7 games, but the Warriors are probably taking it. But that just did not happen. So I think the main thing to pay attention to for this team going into the offseason is Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green are all under contract until the summer of 2027. Stephen Curry is 37 years old. Jimmy Butler is 35. Draymond Green is 35. So you have your 3 main guys in the last chapter of their careers, right? It's unlikely that any of these dudes are going to play, except for Steph. I think Steph could play when he's 40 or 41. I don't think Jimmy Butler's playing past the age of 38 or 39. I don't think Draymond Green is playing past the age of, 38 or 39. So it's very much likely that, if this is the last contract that Jimmy and Draymond have, maybe they sign a 1-year deal with somebody after that, but I would imagine they're going to be way less impactful at that point in their careers. So the window for them is very small. And I don't know what the plan is. And I don't want to say it reminds me of when, the Brooklyn Nets traded for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, because that was a horrible trade and it did not pan out. Obviously, the Nets were not some super team. I think, obviously, like I said, if the Warriors were healthy throughout the playoffs, maybe it winds up differently. Who knows? But I don't think this team is complete enough, right? And I think the way that I really assessed that was Look at the team that Jimmy Butler had in Miami, who he was able to take to, the conference finals and the finals, with relative ease, it seemed like, right? And he took him to the finals twice. So the fact that Jimmy Butler was able to take a team with like Duncan Robinson and, some other just, kind of random players in the league. And I like Duncan Robinson, but he's been a very inconsistent player over the past couple of seasons. But the fact that he was able to kind of do that and get to the finals with this team, you would think Jimmy would be able to do that with this team, right? I would think this team without Steph Curry is at least similarly talented. Maybe not exactly the same, because I don't think, you have a Bam Adebayo on this team. I don't think you have a guy like that Jimmy could rely on. So, I don't know. It's also the Western Conference. I think that type of stuff can work in the East because you're not going through as tough of competition. The East is way more wide open than the Western Conference. So, I don't know if the Jimmy Butler experiment is really going to work out in the long run, right? Especially as these guys get older, they're going to deal with more and more injuries. I just think that's a nature of the business that, this sport is, right? Like when you play basketball and you play 82 games a season, right? And then you try to play in the playoffs as well, like you're going to break down at some point. Like even the guys that are in their 20s break down. So a guy who's 37, 36, 35, they're going to break down too at some point. So I think the Warriors have a good chance to come back next year, be healthy, make a decent run into the playoffs. I think they're probably going to be one of those teams that kind of just makes it in to the bottom of the playoffs, like in that 6 through 10 range. They might make it in as the last playoff team without having to be in the play-in, but more likely than not, I think they're going to be a play-in team again. They have a lot of questions about their roster. Gary Payton II is a free agent. Buddy Hield is under contract until 27-28, where he has a player option for that season. Kevon Looney is a free agent. Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent. Moses Moody is under contract until 27-28. Kevin Knox, he's up. Pat Spencer, he's up. And a lot of these guys are kind of, they're two-way guys, or they've, graduated up from the G League. I don't really know. They need to kind of build something a little bit more solid here if they really want to contend in the West, and I just don't think they have that right now. I love Buddy Hield. I think Buddy Hield is a great addition to the team, but it's still not enough. The thing I don't understand is they don't want to play Kuminga. You could see that in the regular season. You could see it in the playoffs, especially once they got Jimmy Butler in the regular season. Kuminga was not playing anymore. And it's strange because Kuminga was the 7th pick, a couple of years back. And the fact that he's going to be a restricted free agent, right? If they just let him walk, I think that's crazy, right? You should have at least tried to trade him then if that was the case, right? Why are you holding on to him if you're not going to re-sign him for, whatever the price tag is that, someone puts on an offer sheet, right? Because as a restricted free agent, the Warriors have the option to match whatever term sheet he signs with another team. But at this point, I'm kind of what even is the point? You're not going to play him. It doesn't even look like they're really interested in developing him. And he's a good player. I really, this has been a phenomenon to me that I have not understood is why did you take this guy if you are not going to play him? It's just been so incredibly inconsistent. And I think if you're not going to use him, at least do the right thing for this guy and trade him somewhere, and at least you'll get something in return. If they just let him walk in free agency, that would be absolutely insane. But he was the 4th leading scorer on this team, right? And that's behind Andrew Wiggins. So you get rid of Andrew Wiggins, he's the 3rd leading scorer at 15.3 points per game, only playing 24 minutes a night. He's incredibly efficient. And he's improved, in my opinion, just from watching the guy when he has gotten playing time. He doesn't have a great three-point shot, and I think that's why they don't play him as much, because this team is a very, heavy on three-point shooting type of team, even from every position, right? They have different lineups, but a lot of their lineups that they were testing out this season featured guys 1 through 5 that are shooting threes, right? Draymond is shooting threes. Quinten Post is shooting threes. Brandin Podziemski is shooting threes. Buddy Hield shooting threes. Jimmy's shooting threes. There's a lot of 3-point play, And it seems like Kuminga maybe doesn't fit into those lineups, but also he's not fitting into the other lineups that Jimmy is now getting inserted into. So I think they got to do something about this. They have to trade Kuminga. They have to get something back for him, because at this point, if you're just going to let him sit on your bench, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? Especially in the playoffs, because that's when it matters. So I'm not sure what's going on with this team. The Warriors, it seems like they're coming to the end of their cycle, right? But round of applause, honestly, because these guys have been on an incredible run, right? I think Klay Thompson leaving was kind of the first sign that okay, this might be the end. And I think it might be, right? It doesn't mean that the Warriors are never going to win a championship again. It doesn't mean that the Warriors are never going to win again. I just think, it might be over for, the Steph Curry era in terms of him winning a championship here. But honestly, if I've learned anything in the NBA, it's you never bet against Steph Curry. You never doubt Steph Curry, because it doesn't matter what he's doing. He's going to figure it out. And frankly, that kind of goes for Jimmy Butler too. So if anyone can prove me wrong and still win a championship with a team that I don't think really has it, it's this team. Because Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, they're going to do whatever they can to win. And, Steph, he's done it time and time again where you're like, how is he hitting these shots? How is he, making these reverse acrobatic layups? How's he making that pass? So he just figures it out. But, I think they got a lot of thinking to do. They got a lot of moves that they need to think about for free agency. They don't have a first-round pick this year. That, I believe, went to Miami in the Jimmy Butler trade. They do have a second-round pick. I believe it's the 41st overall pick. So, maybe they'll pick someone up there. They've been pretty good with their second-round picks. Right now, Tankathon has them projected to pick Maxime Reynaud, who is one of my favorite sleeper prospects in the draft. He's a senior from Stanford, 7'2", can stretch the floor, plays just incredibly hard. I'm a big fan of Maxime Reynaud. So we'll see what happens with the Warriors, man. But you let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you're a Warriors fan, give me your thoughts. I want to know how you're feeling about your team, how you're feeling about the finish this season, how you feel about Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, all those guys. So leave some comments down below, man. I'm going to check you later. Stay safe, stay up, stay blessed, stay humble, handle business, stand on business. Peace out.